Everyone. So my name is Edina, and I am a founder of Neurospecial. But before I kind of go on to my slides, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a background because I'm going to talk about, um, I feel like a human aspect of supplier diversity and also a bit about myself, just because it's kind of tying together. So I have been working as head of software testing for 15 years for retail organizations, mainly as a consultant or sometimes on just project basis. And I have been with a lot of organizations, and I think that's a key part of my speech as well, that as I moved along onto different projects, I kind of had the experience of different organizational cultures, different way of treating people, and really kind of the inclusion part of a work-life balance. And essentially, around 3-4 years ago, my daughter was diagnosed with ADHD combined with autism. And I always kind of knew that I'm different in a way, that I had some things that maybe people wouldn't necessarily think that it was, a normal thing to do per se. So for example, when I was 15, everybody would be interested in boy bands and kind of social aspect of life. And I wanted to lock myself in a room and learn about all the dog breeds for the next 3 days until I actually knew the lexicon on top of my heart. And, it came with challenges of me being like an outsider of that space, in school and in education, but it also came with positives. So like I have 2 master's degrees, and if you give me a course and I sign up to it and I'm really vested, I can do a 6-month course in 3 weeks because I will spend day and night hyper focusing on that course. And that's probably helped me with my career as well. So I think when I decided that as a junior test analyst, I sat and saw directors and head of software testing moving into a room and making decisions, I just looked at and thought, that's where I'm going to go. And so quite quickly, I think within 2 years, I was already in management position, but because I kind of set myself to it. The challenges around being neurodiverse doesn't necessarily seen by other people because women are good at masking. And as an autistic woman, I am very good at, going into a conversation and nobody will probably notice that I have challenges around maybe sometimes social interactions or a room full of people. Like, for example, I gave a talk at Disneyland for Reconnect, and I preferred 600 people in the dark as opposed to now when I'm looking at you, because it's more nerve-wracking. But equally, I see different ways now that I know about myself. I know how to manage those situations. And I kind of, it's almost like a light bulb where I can see that other people around me, because usually neurodiverse people are friends with other neurodiverse people, more likely to be friends with, because they are kind of like straight to the topic. They don't like small talks. There are a lot of similarities. So, for example, my husband has ADHD. As I said, my entire family is neurodiverse, and we just process things in a different way. So Christmas is not the same in our household because at least 3 of those people in my family will have a sensory overload. And so we need to take time out. And that may mean that I will, in the beginning of, the kind of the Christmas celebrations, I will say I need to go down to my room, which is really specifically put in a basement so that I can be quiet for, 10, 15 minutes. But I didn't come here to talk about just myself. So I am going to try and, so definitely not a boring slide or like without colors. And I did think, should I change it? But should I make it more corporate? But actually, or should I ask the lady who was making it to make it more corporate? But actually, I think it just kind of shows that the reason why I chose the name Neurospecial and the reason why I decided to leave my corporate career behind was to really kind of highlight the difference between if we treat other people in a way that we adapt and support them, then they can come out with the not just the same opportunities, but same productivity or even better. But we just need that adaptation for them. And so they can't really fit in that box. And I saw that in two examples within my work. One was I worked for this large retail organization, and I had quite a large team in India and in the UK as well. But they gave me the autonomy for that team to be structured in a way I wanted to structure it, which meant that I had two main program test managers, and underneath them were sitting across the test managers and the junior test analysts in that technology space. And that gave me the opportunity not to have too many social interactions. So there are days when I will feel absolutely fine to chat to anybody, but there are days when I wake up and I just really don't want to talk to a single person. And I can't really, like, I can manage it, but I don't really know when it's coming to the surface. It's usually if I spread myself too thin. So if I have a lot of interaction with a lot of people over the week, and if I don't sleep well, and if I don't eat well. And so I have to put all these kind of management and almost like structures in my day in order for me to function well. But then, so in this particular organization, I really thrived, and I was a very good employee, and they were very happy with me, and I had great ideas, and we were all implementing them, and I worked great as not just as a leader, but as a team player as well. Then after this project finished, I went into another organization, and not going to call names, but there was another organization where they had a culture of ad hoc meetings. Like, you would just sit there, and for somebody who is autistic and wants to know everything, like, I will literally sit on a Sunday, open my laptop and look at my week ahead, and I need to know what's happening. Like, I can deal with a little bit of a spontaneity, but not somebody calling me every half an hour without me knowing, because every interaction is with a different person, and every person has different tone of voice, different speed of talking, and those things impact me or impact that person. So I saw the two ends of that productivity, and that's kind of came to me that I really don't want any other women to, or men who have neurodiversity, to experience that they feel isolated and not productive and almost to the verge of like disciplinary action just because they are not having adaptations what they should have. So finally, I'm going to move on to the slide. So I feel like Peter covered this slide for me, so thank you, because then I don't really have to go into why. I did brainstorm about this, and then I thought, why should neurodiverse-owned businesses matter to anybody, really? Because we are only coming up with the knowledge that there is neurodiversity in the last 10, 20 years, really, when it's becoming something what people speak about. But if we look at, the idea behind having small businesses as suppliers, they don't usually have, a large team behind them. The entrepreneurs or like the owners are really close to, essentially close to the tenders, close to any kind of activity within those businesses. And so kind of like quick facts, approximately 2.6 million people affected by ADHD in the UK, and that's just ADHD. There are 10 to 15 neurodiverse conditions. When there are a couple of training companies I was speaking to, now that we are a training company as well, I always find it really interesting how they offer a neurodiversity workshop of like, let's say, a day or 2 days. I couldn't even cover ADHD, and actually female ADHD or male ADHD are completely different. Not male. There are 3 different types. And so I couldn't even cover them in half a day, let alone to now provide tools to managers how to support it and invoke empathy and understanding. So really making them champions within those teams, really kind of walking away and thinking, the next interview, I'm going to look at this person with a different lens and maybe won't judge them the same way because they are late with 5 minutes, because they have poor time management skills, and that's because they have ADHD, So there are a lot of learnings, I think, in that. And that's, again, just another fact about autism. Now, instead of me kind of just give you facts, I thought I'm going to give you like a fictional story. And because it's a fictional story, it's very unlikely that there are so many vendors, who will be all neurodiverse. But I just wanted to give you like kind of a feel on what these people think or may think. And that's coming from a lot of my coaching practice as well, because I do kind of have clients on a one-to-one basis on ADHD and autism. So this is kind of just a theory, or essentially a case, if you would say a fictional case study on a mid-sized food manufacturer specializing in prepackaged snacks and facing a growing pressure from customers. And they are looking for something, what is a better and more sustainable way of packaging their product. They have a problem and they need a sustainable and innovative packaging solution. And those are their key kind of requirements. And then we have some vendors, which are, as I said, very unlikely that they would be all in the same group, but just for this presentation, I put them together. So Gina, she's diagnosed with autism, and she is essentially somebody who is working really hard on her business. She has a small team of experts, and she can offer a unique solution to the client. Tom, a neurotypical business owner. Apologies, but I feel like that slide, my perfectionism is already seeing the issues with the underneath, the space is missing, but never mind, I'm going to try to ignore it. So Tom is a neurotypical business owner with a medium good solution, which you will see in the next slide. Peter, diagnosed with ADHD, and so he knows about his condition. He's able to get support, the right support for it. Priya, a mom of 3 and a business owner. She doesn't have no neurodiversity, but I wanted to add it because when we talk about women-owned businesses, I think it's important to understand their kind of difficulties and limitations. And then Femi, who is aware of his ADHD, but because his daughter was diagnosed, but he's not somebody who wants to accept it in a way that he doesn't want to ask for adaptations. He really struggles with that knowledge because his family never really thought that that's something what would be a superpower to him. It's more like a challenge. And then a large organization. So these are the proposed solutions, which at the moment it's not necessarily important for the slide, but essentially the proposed solutions are, they are kind of ranked in a way that solution 1 from Gina is, Gina and from Femi would be one of those best solutions for the company in terms of innovativeness and long-term sustainability solution. But not many of them make it to the shortlist. So submission-wise, Priya is unable to submit on time, and that's because her mom is the one looking after the 3 children while she is running her business, running her small company. Her husband is not very supportive of the idea that Priya should be a business owner and, not necessarily focus on all her efforts onto looking after the children. She misses the deadline because her mom gets ill, and that just kind of, falls like a pack of dominoes. Peter doesn't progress to the next round. Nothing wrong with Peter's submission. His idea just wasn't be bought. Then Gina, who would be me, very likely, something I would do. So Gina will walk all the way she gets shortlisted. She'll walk all the way to the interview, but because she is scared to have a bias against her, that she wouldn't be very comfortable with a group of people, and essentially that interview process and presentation, she turns around the last minute and goes home. And Tom wins the contract. He just comes in, does the presentation well, does everything well, submits on time, although he doesn't have the best solution. And Femi is late to the meeting, and that will be a crucial point, because there are quite a lot of points I could raise on the differences if a neurodiverse person would go into this, interview. But Femi is late because he's time and time again during his preparation in the hallway searching for his jacket. Now, this may sound funny to a lot of people, but actually in Femi's head, because his frontal lobe can't connect the fact that he needs a priority. His priority is to get to the presentation, and it doesn't really matter which jacket he should wear. He can't comprehend that even if you tell him to do so, and he misses, and he's late with like 5-10 minutes, which puts him in a position where all of these things can happen just, and the second slide, just from the fact that he came in 5 minutes late. So our perception can go into that he's disorganized, and he will feel judged. His credibility will be reduced. He will have a sense of discouragement. His confidence will increase because he feels like they overlooked his efforts, even though he was getting ready. And the audience might think that he has lack of respect for people, and he will have stress and anxiety, and probably won't be able to articulate his presentation, or that, whatever message or whatever he has to do as part of that interview is going to be impacted from the fact that he's late, and that's not taken the same way as, that's not adapted or understood. And he will have difficulty gaining audience engagement. So that's kind of just a choice of the fact that Femi's solution would have been the better one, or could have been the better one, but we will never know, because we are all humans and we look at each other, and in 5 seconds, it's actually known that it's 5 seconds what it takes for us to judge another person and really kind of make a decision on whether we trust this person, whether we want to get to know this person or not. And these are some of the challenges and the solutions we have been experiencing, and then we have been trying to solve as a company and as a consultancy in this space, where the complexity of an RFP language is, it's daunting for somebody who has ADHD and who has autism, actually. The lack of awareness of the training from, stakeholders and clients alike, and the bias in the evaluation criteria, if maybe it's not filled out in a way that it should be necessarily using that language, is there. And so those are kind of our solutions, but I know I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna thank you so much for.
Food for thought, isn't it? I've not really thought of that. So Edina, would you say it's really important to actually declare and have the strength and to declare your diversity?
Well, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. And I think the other part of it is that most of, like, let's say I would apply for a corporate job, even though there is a section that I can declare that I'm neurodiverse, it is still a difficult decision, because it puts me at that, disadvantage in my head, whether they will think I'm difficult. And then there's a double bias because I'm a woman. And so I most likely have children, at that age group. So there's a lot of bias there, which I kind of have to weigh up before I would declare that I'm neurodiverse. It's easy now because I'm running my own company, but it's difficult. Like my husband, he actually works for Merck, and it took him 6 years to declare that. Well, actually, it took him 2 years to accept he has ADHD, and it took him really 6 years to say, I have neurodiversity. And now MSD have been so supportive, because he has really well ideas, he built some great things, but he will probably not put as much as work effort in 3 days, and then in 2 days he will cover 2 weeks worth of effort. And all of the managers are now kind of open to accepting that that's his way of working, and he doesn't necessarily fit into the 9-to-5 box.
Now, one quick question for you. The last penultimate slide was the killer slide. What should be different in the RFP process to be more engaging and neurodiversity?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, that we definitely need to look at documentation, the format you are offering. That is there an option to do within the format, you know? And when we are asking questions like, do you have a neurodiversity? What adaptations do you need? A person who is a wheelchair user, you wouldn't necessarily, like you would have an option rather than putting the onus on the individual to say, because I might not say to you that I don't really like, an interview with 3 people, I would prefer 1-to-1, but I might not write it there because how much of that compromise you are willing to do. So I feel like it should be the other way around. This is what we are offering as adaptations because we are knowledgeable in what should be offered to these individuals.
I think because you also see that's also what you're offering is training to corporations to better understand people with neurodiversity.
Yes.
I think that's important too, right? Because if you have a day that you cannot, just don't feel like it. Sorry, that you cannot, do your pitch that day because you just don't, you can't. That I, as a buyer, should be able to understand that. Okay, let's deal with that and do it another day. But to get there, I think people need to be educated as well to understand, why you cannot do your pitch.
Yes, exactly. And I think this is the key importance kind of my company is set up in a way that the trainers are also either come with lived experience or they are coming from like a psychology background. We have in our advisory board, I managed to get women who are really focused and men who are really focused on making a difference. So we have an employment law specialist who is advising on, the training pack so that it's really kind of, it's not just a training, it's also an awareness and it's also that you becoming a champion. So you are looking at it in a different way, almost out of the box. Sorry.
Yeah, so interesting observation about the whole disclosure piece there. Edina and I were talking over lunch because I have a keen interest in this topic as well. I have a neurodivergent 22-year-old, and I also have a social enterprise that helps neurodivergent people try to find work within IT. We were talking about disclosure in interview situations and in the workplace, but it completely escaped me that in a supplier customer interaction, you don't know, and you're not going to expect someone to disclose a neurological condition. So it was a bit of a light bulb moment for me thinking about the sort of the workshops and when we have supplier panels and things like that, when you're engaging with prospective providers, that we place a lot of importance on behavior, and certainly I do as well. And often in evaluations, people do get scored down because of being disorganized on the day. And actually that may just be because of a bit of ADHD or whatever. You wouldn't expect someone to disclose that in that type of environment. So I think this is where that sort of unconscious bias comes in. And I say I'm guilty of it as well. I think many of us are, that we judge people on what we see, not necessarily what the output is and what the deliverable is. And that's an education thing I think we need to focus on. And until as professionals we have a greater understanding that people are different and you can't expect everyone to function the same way. It was a great example with Femi. We like that example. Had the best solution but didn't come across in the right way. I think it really says a lot about how more inclusive we all need to be in those interactions.
Actually, Gary, can I just say, when you were doing your presentation and you were mentioning the workshops, which I think they are absolutely great, being more collaborative and being in that space. I kind of, with my mind, I was thinking, how would I behave in those workshops, or how would somebody with neurodiversity, and they may not come across straight away. If they get to know people, or they have a couple of allies or a mentor or a buddy system there, then they probably do better than if they would be thrown into 20 people where a lot of people would be, competing against each other.
That's really refreshing and eye-opening and very candid conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you.